Time is 7:01. Here.
We have a quorum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Reading from Matthew chapter 5. And who shall stand in his holy place? Those who have clean hands and pure hearts, who do not lift up their souls to not swear deceitfully. They will receive blessing from the Lord, vindication from the God of our salvation, loving above all kingdoms, above all nature, and above all created things. Yet you care for the least among us, even as we pray for this council, for this city, for your guidance and your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Move to approve.
Second. Been moved by Howard, seconded by Doug. Any discussion? Hearing none. Opposed? That is approved. Now moving into public comment. This is the opportunity for citizens to come before the council with comments and concerns on any current city issue and in return, I expect the council to treat the citizens with the same respect. Before you begin, please state your name and address for the record. First, we have Rebecca Reinhardt.
I'd like to start up some type of a group for the underprivileged, that they can feel that they have the right to express their feelings, where they want to go in life, that they just can feel they have some type of authority, but they also are willing to let others. Myself that's already had these experiences, who else can be a better example to just tell them what I've gone through, that's a real big change. And I want to just help others believe they have more talents than they had ever thought, realize that they show off. Why can't a group like this be started just like you've helped all these other groups, this minority group as well?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mike Dudzinski.
Washington Street. So on June 6, 2007, that was the last time that the council gave a list to the building inspector, giving the historic buildings. The Little White Schoolhouse was on. Urgently not send a record to the Fond du Lac County saying that that should have been held on the deed. When did the council learn that this was a mistake? I want to ask each and every one of you council members that you put this on the next council so that we can discuss and find out what the truth is, because the people that know up there will not speak on this. They want to it and hide from it. Please put it on the meeting. Thank you.
And last we have Orlando Nevis, or Nevis.
Good evening, gentlemen. God blessings. My name is Orlando Nisrubio for U.S. Press Agency at 827 Watson Street here in Ripon. I have a couple of questions here that I want to address with all respect regarding certain questions we have. Why are there no common council meeting minutes posted in the City of Ripon website since April? They have all changed. Why are the minutes not there? What happened to the packet submitted last meeting? Why are the minutes and public comments in that packet from the last meeting able to accommodate certain arrangements, a mechanism? For where we're here in public comments, we have questions, but we never get those answers. See? Suggestion or propose to create a mechanism, some system approach that these questions addressed by the public, with all respect your elected officials. And if you can create a mechanism for us, we the people, that if there are questions addressed, they will be seen, answered the next minute, education and collaboration between the people and our elected officials, which we highly respect in each order. So if that has been so many questions and there's no answers, and we would like to have those answers, we the people, and I speak on behalf of the city, of the people of Ripon. So I leave that available to answer these questions. Minutes doesn't have to be specific, but something that can lead us where we're going.
All right, that is the end of the public comment. Moving into our first agenda item. First item is project update, that is.
Good evening. Probably shouldn't move that, right? The project process here, where we started and where we're at this point in the project process, just to give you an update, provide some transparency as to what we're working on and how far along. Hold on, let me get in here. Where are you? There you are. Thanks, Adam. Yep. Thanks for queuing it up. All right. If you want to go to the first slide, please. So this first slide is just a control and civil. The city representatives that have been helping us along the way have a broad range of representation from administration and been a lot of help in helping us define the program for the building and the space that's necessary for that function. Down below there, the agenda, what I'll hit on today is floor plans and materials, programming comparisons. So I was in front of you a little over a year ago with a report out about where we thought at that point the program needed to be, and we want to going to give you a sense of where we're at in terms of the updated cost estimates, phasing plan, some of the work that has to be done before we can start construction out there, and then actions and next steps. So the project activity up till this point, we've completed the programming. That's based on whom and how the workflow passes through the facility, operational efficiency, those types of things. Equipment test fits are important. We want to make sure that we've accommodated all of the covering the equipment out of inclement weather. We've done the draft floor plan, which you see down below, the color coding. I'll explain what that is here in the slides. Updated the cost estimate based on cost per square foot at this point. They'll get more detailed and granular as we start to move into more detailed plans, but we're giving you a sense of where we're tracking in terms of the cost within that budget. And that's been taking some value engineering exercises and a lot of conversation back and forth with the people that use the building every day, and how that marries up with the cost. And we'll spend just quickly. The orange area is where the vehicles are stored. The purple area is what we're calling the shop, the maintenance area. That would include the tool rooms, those types of things. The dark blue square on the lower left And then the light blue area is administration. So those are all the offices, locker rooms, lunch break room, those types of things. So we're tracking about 8 weeks behind what we originally had anticipated for the schedule, and that's attributable again to that value engineering. We're taking precautions as we move through. We've right-sized the program based on some value engineering discussions. Our 30% review of plans and estimate will happen by the end of July, so that we'll be ready to bid in February and March, so construction can start around April.
Speaking of not being able to read that, well, is this emailed? I didn't see an email. Can it be emailed to?
So talking about siting and operations, the plan that you see on the left is the building placed on the existing site. The rectangle that you see, garage and shop building, that will remain intact and operational through construction, and then will be removed after the fact. There's a water main that crosses the site. Steps we have to take before we can start the construction of the building. What we've done though is looked at traffic in operations of vehicles on the site, making sure that there's opportunity for safe movements, keeping the big trucks separated from small vehicles and personal vehicles, those types of things. There's a part of the building is over the maintenance shop because they have to raise equipment up in those spaces that are already almost 12 and 13 feet tall. So that portion of the building is roughly 30 feet tall. The orange is more scaled appropriately for the front, as that building faces the community or out to the front along Aspen Street there. Will be fully accessible, ADA accessibility. Everything is mainly on one level. There's some storage mezzanines in there and the mechanical equipment mezzanines, but for the most part, everything. So you'll see when in the floor layout for the garage space itself, we had to take into account turning movements for those vehicles to get in and out of there. So that in terms of long-term strategy for the site, we're maintaining an existing storage building, the green metal building to the far planned north left corner up there. That building will remain on things that aren't used as often, if you will, to keep them covered, but not as part of the main building. We're providing side of the building for safety reasons, keeping the public out of some of those movement areas, but also providing a level of security also to staff vehicles and those types of things. Public versus the operations side of the building is, you can see that steps down there along Aspen Street, and then it steps up as it goes back to the 25 feet and then to the 30 feet of the vehicle maintenance garage height in that space. One of the things we're really advocating for is sustainability in this building. So we're looking at having to use artificial light sources in places like the truck parking areas and those types of things. As I mentioned, the building will be fully accessible. For male and female users, I mentioned not only will the site enhance safety and security, but the building itself will as well. Building size originally was 33,520 square feet, and currently now we're tracking about 39,000 square feet. So what's the difference? So if you see the SCADA room, and then they would co-share common space like the break room, the training room, and those types of functions. So we increased a little bit more of the program. Office and admin is about 6,000. The vehicle storage is obviously the largest need in that building, and that's 17,500-ish square feet. The shop and wash bay, which is that sits over the top of those shop functions, is centrally located, so it's ideal for mechanical equipment use up platform up there, but then also storage. That's wash bay actually shrunk a little bit, about 600 square feet, but then the vehicle storage area, because of those added 3 pickup trucks and some trailer storage in there, increased the vehicle storage area by about. I mentioned we're designing the program to meet the budget. We're at about 1% difference from the 622 estimate. Part of that's attributed to rising cost in construction, but we have a little bit more square footage, as I mentioned, because we're bringing that water department function along as well. We adjusted the budgets for 2023 costs. We trued up the AE, and as we went through that, not RFP process, but our proposal process with you, having a better understanding of what the program was, we were able to reduce some of those design costs, so that trued that or account for shop equipment, owner purchase stuff. So anything that you're going to need, lifts, hoists, anything that can't come from the old building to the new building is not accommodated in there. But there is this is with new furniture, but that wouldn't include anything in the shop that the mechanics would need. They would purchase that separately. Facilities constructed. We do have that 12-inch water service that has to be rerouted from the site before we can begin construction out there. So there's a couple of steps that need to be taken before we can fully. When we moved to 60%, that was that time frame out there around Thanksgiving time-ish. We want to make sure before we embark on that next 30% is that the burns at 30 and 60%, and allowing everybody to see those plans and comment is going to help us narrow that focus and make sure that you've got the building you need moving into the next 25 to 50 years. Electrical engineers here recently, so we're starting to layer that information into the drawings. Interior and exterior finish materials are on schedule for the next couple of meetings, and those landscaping for a site like this. Next slide. That takes us to the end of the presentation. Probably at that 60%-ish, so fall, September, October, maybe early November. It all depends on how quickly we get through 30. Engage our professional cost estimators. We have enough detail in the drawings to really give you a good sense of what this building is actually going to look like. The longevity of some of the interior finishes and the cost benefit analysis of some of that. So when we have more of that information to inform, we'll be sharing that.
Okay, thank you.
Derek.
You said it has mezz level for storage and so forth. What is the primary means of accessing? Is it going to be stairwell,
It's stairs.
elevator?
It's stairs. Yeah. We're not required by code to put an elevator in there because technically it's unoccupied space. State review sees that as unoccupied space if you have mechanical space or just storage up there, and it's limited to a third. I'm going to bore you with some detail, but if it's limited to a third of the diagonal of the room that it serves, equipment means like a forklift will get product up and down.
Okay, forklift would be access for heavier equipment.
Equipment and storage, pallet storage. Most of the positive feedback and information has been by our committee. It hasn't been at the general public at large. But what obviously with this being part of an agenda in terms of that, but all the positive feedback we've gotten has been from the team that's been programming this. And I mentioned who those folks were in that early slide.
I assume the team is obviously talking.
Yes, that's apparent too, because most of the staff that's going to be housed in this sit in on our design meetings, and it alters once in a while when depending on the agenda, we'll get different participants. It's kind of a lot of moving parts, people coming and going into the conversation, but I think that's the best way to get that input and move that forward. And I have to say, scope creep wish list kind of thing that will come back someday and say, oh my gosh, why were we so far over budget? People have the expectation that there's a budget. So it's been a real good dialogue and conversation.
And last question for me,
see this in other cities. It seems like a creative use of resources. I guess why wasn't it from the beginning, or how did that come about? It seems like a positive thing.
Evaluating the facilities beyond the public works facility. The water facility is essentially a small manufactured house with limited storage. Through looking at that and looking at this project and what it would cost to build them an independent facility, say at a well or somewhere not centrally located to the public works facility, it just made sense. Departments and working more efficiently between utilities and traditional public works as it's been established here. So, so creating a space where is the future.
Doug?
The lab is staying where it's at then for water?
Wastewater
Yes.
will stay over in wastewater area, so they'll still be.
I'm sorry, I'm getting into this a little on the later side. Is there going to be an opportunity for maybe an office space? I know Ashton will be working slightly with the DPW. Maybe work over there interimly when she's working with Mr. Allen and so forth.
So if you look here, we have larger corner DPW office. There's an office, then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Water lead operator office. There would then be a, what would be the utility manager. And then there's 2 other offices, one for the street lead, for wastewater. So we'll have some flex space there to bring people into the fold and have a landing spot. Because yes, bringing people into the area there to talk and work improves communication and can improve efficiencies quite a bit. So there are enough office spaces there to accommodate additional management to go into this facility, or just be a catch-all kind of office space shared between certain coworkers or certain managers or department heads. So we have factored in a little bit more office. So we've really tried to, this image here is far less complicated than where we were probably 3 months ago, and putting lines on.
Conference room there where people from other buildings, whether it's the Parks and Rec office at Murray Park or someone from City Hall, can go and do their discussions on site. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Our next item is Barlow Park. Ashton, why don't you start this one?
Okay, well, nice to see you all again. So this project kind of came about, Adam and I were just talking one day, trying to figure out a project that was on a smaller scale that we could start citizens and whatnot, and just kind of taking ownership of what is in the parks already, trying to improve them. The court that's currently there, it's 3 volleyball courts right next to one. The center court is the only one that's semi-usable right now. The 2 courts on the sides are just totally weed infested, and there's not a lot of stitches. And then there was just sand put in, whereas this plan, there would be drainage, oh my gosh, what's wash stone, 3 French drains that would then drain to the north, like towards the baseball diamonds, just so there's not essentially a pool of water in the court if it rains a lot. And then also the plan, it's only 2 volleyball courts this time instead of 3. So 2 courts like this, and there's about 15 feet in between the 2 courts, just to allow space if a ball goes to the other court, whatnot, which happens all the time in volleyball. Enough room, just sand. So I spoke to, or I emailed and spoke to 6 different excavating companies, and two responded, which was R&R and Novak. Weren't interested in those two, were the two that were interested in the project. So, yeah, so that's basically the gist of it all. I don't know if anybody has any questions about it or.
Okay. All right, so I've looked at the plan and so forth, and I noticed that it's in a predominant location for, if you want to say, home runs, because it's somewhat raised where we're not going to be getting grass clipping, weeds and so forth, or how do we plan on maintaining this?
So it's gonna be at the same level that it's at currently. Like, so there's and then, honestly, I did not think of, well, for the softball diamond, I think it's more of like in a potential future project, like future.
Actually, from what I see, it's actually in the same area, or about the same area.
She's talking about
The softball?
If
I may interject?
so please.
The softball field you're talking about in that same
Softball is going to
area?
be right behind.
That hasn't been locked in for sure.
Yeah.
It's also been talked about putting the softball field where the loop is. Extend out so there wouldn't be any conflict between the baseball and softball if they're playing at. That it is.
Just your thought process was is to start with a smaller, when baseball seems to be predominant and even softball in this city, sports of interest. We actually have the scoreboard is less than desirable. You have a padlock that keeps it locked and so forth, which sometimes does not get locked. You open that up and you get to the breaker panel, and the breaker panel has, so, I mean, I just see where we could spend $31,000 on something that's being actively used, gets used a lot, and would make people a lot happier.
On the court that's currently there, but I don't feel like I can. So if this court could be redone, I would definitely program the heck out of the court. I would love to have co-ed leagues, women's, men's, women's, whoever wants to use it. And with that, in my survey that I sent out when I first started, so in the question that said, when asked what response for what people want to see for programming. So that's why I think it would definitely be used and would be a popular amenity added. I mean, it's there, but it's just not usable, so.
And actually, I think it showed at the time, maybe it's changed, that Selfridge Park down the road from me had a sand volleyball court. And I was like, oh, really? I went out there and you can see where there was sand at one time, but you can't play. What is our plan? You know, I assume, we haven't had someone in your role, that you will have a plan moving forward, because while this works in the short term, to be able to use it maintenance-wise, that there is a plan for.
On it to go back and revert into what it was. So I would definitely take ownership in what the court would be, and making sure that it is with the parks crew, with the guys and everything.
You answered my question.
Yeah.
But then you brought in another question for me. You said, hopefully we can get adjustable heights for the net.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, what we would be voting on today, if we were to pass this tonight, could we get
So this would just be for the excavating project. With the uprights and the net, the one, they're roughly around like the same price wise, but it's around of the uprights, nets, and then the padding that goes on them too. So an additional 5,000.
So is that, the 31,000 mentioned in your report, that includes the nets, but does it?
Both, and Parks and Rec reviewed this project. They found it to be a valuable project, a small project we could absorb in this year's budget. And it included the 31,000 as up to, because as a recommendation. So.
Howard?
We used to have outdoor volleyball leagues, and they were very popular. It got to the point though, where, and this is something that I know the youth being up there all the time for baseball in the spring, there's kids over there playing, you know, with volleyballs and at the adjustable. It is something that will make our parks more useful. More people will be able to utilize it with the shelter restrooms right there. And it can be used as our parks had been neglected because of budget situations for so many years. We got to start somewhere, and this is a good project to start with.
David?
As far as, I'm seeing here that you're, as far as alleviating some of this cost.
Yeah, Adam and I talked about seeing if just we could go to local businesses, anybody, just seeing if they would want to be a part in sponsoring the court. So there's not anything.
Solicit funds when you don't have a guarantee on a project.
Yeah, you got to have a project.
Right,
first. That's
once
true.
we get the project, then we'll solicit the heck out of it.
Doug?
We approve.
I should have.
I think they said like 30 days.
Yeah.
It will be, work will be complete in 30 days from signed contract. That was R&R.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't need it.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Confident we will be able to get teams along with, I'm so sorry, along with the college being there too. I think that's super helpful if I'm able to get college age league, co-ed, men's, women's, whichever. Yeah.
Okay. One more question.
If we would pass this and it's 31,000, this be taking money away from? What's your next project that we'd be short now, this 31,000?
The answer to that is nothing.
Yeah.
Part of the benefits and things of that nature are not necessary. Significant dollars for health insurance and whatnot. So this money would be easily absorbed, or this project could be easily absorbed in rec on a project that we, you know, as we've evolved into this, we would have loved to plan it out and put it in the budget, but we put other.
Address that electrical box.
Yeah, I think we can have it looked at and reviewed and see what
I
the
did see
true
pictures
problem
of
is.
it.
Yes.
It's dangerous. I did see pictures of it, so. Okay.
But I guess a point of clarification for that. If you had a concern about the electrical box, the appropriate person would be to go to you directly, even before a council meeting, right?
Yep. We'll take care of it.
Yes.
To be honest, replace it. As one who's been flipping switches in that box for years, replace it. If we can find them.
With R&R wash not to exceed the total of 31,000.
Okay.
Moved by Ellen, seconded by Jolene. Any discussion on the motion?
Part, okay, all right, I'm good then.
Up to $31,000.
Up to 31, okay, I did not hear that part, thank you.
Including the,
Next.
They're up about as high as they'll go and it's not helping. You're gonna have to talk loud.
If it's there, I'm just.
John will be your first one.
Are you captain? Team?
Captain. John's captain of the council team, right?
That would be something. We got
Tournament, who's going to be responsible for removal if they are removed?
Of the pets.
Yep.
So they'll stay on like during the summer, fall time, but they'll be removed for winter.
We're not worried about.
Definitely from that point on, address it.
Other than that, my only other discussion point or comment would be the fact that I think we should move closer towards reestablishing, maintain.
Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the Barlow Park Sand Volleyball Court project not to exceed $31,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is a proposal for organizational consulting services. Adam.
In your packet, there's a little memo and a proposal from CP2 Consulting. They are two consultants that work in organizational consulting. So looking at, the operation, mission, vision, values is kind of a trendy thing. So I wanted to bring this forward to you all. The proposal is for $3,465.60. Accept it. It certainly is a small amount. It was not an item that was necessarily budgeted for, but could be included in our general fund very easily. in some looking at the structure, looking at interviewing staff, reviewing sort of, department by department, analyzing what things are going well, and ultimately all out there working, but there's no kind of core mission. There's no real good communication strategy out to staff. And our current mission statement, you can see there, organizational values and vision to promote and to communicate to the public and our staff, to set expectations, to bring in, and frankly, bringing in someone to help push this forward, and creating a relationship with somebody like Allison will allow us to continue the services we want to provide, and sets us up for, I think, success. So it's kind of our first dip. It will be our first kind of dip into this type of effort. And there is a sort of how she lays it out. She's worked certainly with other communities, and there would be sort of a meetings and interviews set up that could have council included if you so desire to be a part of it. And then we would sort of try to create an overall mission, vision, value statement and promote that through our organization. So, yes.
I'm glad you said that that could include council, because that's the question that I had written. What an elected official's role is, what the limitations of it are, and what the partnership of the council is to the administration. I was disappointed when term council members, as well as I'm one of the newer ones, as Terry is. I think we will be doing, the League of Women Voters will be doing a panel discussion on how that people in the community don't understand how government works, how local government works. And I don't hesitate to say that we have some council members who do not understand how local government process.
Yeah.
I'll come off my soapbox now.
Just said, I think just the point here is that if we want to have a strong outcome of this, you want voices of our local leaders. And so it sounds like you have a vision of us being involved for those.
Yeah, at the end of the day, too, there are two separate things here, too. There's a community vision statement and there's an organizational vision statement, okay? And what we are trying to accomplish as staff. We certainly huge component of it, but creating a culture in this organization it starts at the bottom and comes up to administration. And ultimately what we're trying to get to here, and with new staff in play, organization, how to get behind one goal. This organization admittedly hasn't always been working together, right? So promoting that, the next generation of workforce this is a little different in a sense that it is organizational focused. So, we'd be trying to, for example, me as the city administrator, I can try to not pick a weed, right? And that grow to be a bigger weed, and then we have complaints coming in, and it's just, at the end of the day, trying to set that standard, try to promote and leadership, and as we continue to shift and evolve as an organization, is healthy. And private sector does this a lot better than the public sector, but as we look at replacing individuals in the organization over time, it's something they look for in an organization. So that's kind of why it's in front of you. Want to do it.
I have a follow-up question on the council. We currently have a committee structure that does not work. Could that be part of this organizational how do we make it work? Because I've worked for several different governments, and this committee structure does not work.
So, like I said, this is our toe into the wall, and in bringing forward someone who looks at a strategic organizational plan, not just a mission, vision, values, building off that and saying, okay, here's this aspect of the organization will be more effective, or there's just another model that we can consider. That can be part of it. Another thing is what position do we need 5-10 years from now? What positions do we have to build in as we grow, as we evolve? What services are we offering? These are the things that we aren't doing. We are completely reacting. The step in to something we have never done before, but certainly understand that, you know, things are changing sometimes. To assist with that and bring best practices and examples from the state and beyond is I think important. An outsider's perspective, I think, is incredibly valuable at times. So, but this is just one aspect of it. This is just the start.
I'd just like to add, as someone who is currently the director of a nonprofit in this county, being able to really hone in, and she said she works with mission-driven organizations, I really feel, and here empowering leaders, I really feel this would be something that our local leaders outside of even who's here, it would be valuable if they could understand that process. I don't know if that's also a vision monthly with local business leaders, people who are taking ownership, I think, of how to be proactive for the city. It's just an idea if that would be something that we see opening this up to interested. However, maybe that's not ideal for what she wants. I just think that as a city, as a community.
I think at a community level that makes sense. This again is an organizational level.
Yeah.
So you know, this starts with every one of our employees and what, you know, what is the feedback and then kind of bringing it back to you know, administration and council to collect feedback, and then you know, there are back to the goals and the mission of the overall organization and community, and we're not tying everything together. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing, right? So tying it together and you know, I don't like the tacky stuff, but certainly you see it in the private sector, you see it all over the place. Setting the right.
Al?
I move that we retain a program at the cost not to exceed, was it $33,465.66.
Howard, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the organizational consulting services? Next is an ordinance to amend Chapter 20.46, the floodplains and shoreland wetlands of municipal zoning code. This is coming forward from the Plan Commission. Basically just gets our ordinance in lockstep with DNR recommendations, as well as a Title 170,
Act 175.
Act 175, which allows for rebuilding in flood zones requiring certain criteria. He can explain more.
Hearing done by the Plan Commission. Plan Commission reviewed this a couple times. They included language in the ordinance that is an update that includes Act 175. It's a state regulations to be adopted back into the state standard because the state standard was a little more restrictive. So there's the ability to rebuild under certain conditions in the floodway. It just goes back to a case in Trempealeau County on the. It only affects a handful of properties, really only 2 or 3, I believe, in the community. The rest of it is a review, an update as required by the. So a lot of detail in there. Obviously, a big ordinance has not been updated for, I believe, 12 years. So just a general update to refresh it with. To that, if not, yeah, but a few words and changes are directly from the DNR.
A second.
Been moved by John, seconded by Ellen. Any discussion?
So this would practically change what in everyday sort of operations of the city? This would create a new zone?
It honestly, we have a zoning ordinance for this already. We have a floodplain zoning ordinance. If you looked at our current one, it would be probably 80% the same of what's here. It's just an updated version of it. So it wouldn't really change much in terms of what's currently happening. Our process certainly will improve moving forward with floodplain zoning regulations and permitting. I think there's area for improvement there as administration has become more involved in the zoning parts of this, of managing this. So some of our processes will change, but in principle and in sort of like what does it change for people? Not a ton. Just provides a little more flexibility and puts in place our dam failure analysis that was never formally codified in. So all DNR guidance, all FEMA guidance, it's all stuff that we really don't have it. We have to, as locals, enforce it. You're not going to have the DNR permitting much. They leave it up to us. So
Thanks.
Any other? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the ordinance to amend chapter 20.46, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Cafe ordinance and other sidewalk encroachments. This was discussed briefly at the last meeting.
It is. On this page.
Various council members that some of the sidewalk cafes are limiting sidewalk usage for people that are just passing by. I have come up with a possible in addition to ordinance 6.34, which is the sidewalk cafe ordinance, my suggestion would be in the 6.40, adding letter E. Sidewalk cafes shall not be placed within 5 feet of a curb and shall allow for a minimum of 5 feet of obstructed sidewalk. The 5 feet is derived from another ordinance that we have, 15.20 of obstructions and encroachments. The ordinance doesn't really change any enforcement because we already have it. But it makes it easier for people who are applying for the sidewalk cafe to understand what the requirements are.
This brought back up, 5 feet is basically 2 people walking side by side down the sidewalk. Gives them enough room for that. A good example of on the cafes was this past Saturday with Alumni Weekend. A lot of large crowds were walking and there were people stepping out in the street to go around certain spots because the had pushed their tables and things out farther than what they should have. And This way, and when we discussed this ordinance several years ago, we said we wanted to see how it would go. Anybody who applies, as the mayor said, would be on a knowledge of exactly what their limitations were. And so nobody can say, well, he's doing this and she's doing that. It's cut and dry. This is what.
Curb, what about like at Canoes where you have the temporary sidewalks?
That's in lieu of the sidewalk itself.
Yes.
That's why that, their beverages and that outside, that could be encompassed as part of their premise by giving that sidewalk piece out there.
Okay, so
that
the curb then would be the end of the temporary.
their temporary
Right.
bump out.
But the point being there is that it needs to be 5 feet wide, whatever the walkway, right?
Correct.
That's what we're saying here.
Correct. And the item cafes.
Yep.
So they have a separate set of rules that they have to follow for those.
Okay.
This is pretty much everyone except for Knuth's has a sidewalk cafe, whereas Knuth is
Thought there'd be more. Just say.
It's a limit to 2 parking stalls per block.
Yep.
So
I think the 5 on the sidewalk, there's trees, there's the metal grates for trees that take up space. I think 5 feet's a little too much. I think anywhere between the 3, I think 8, if I remember right from Sue Leahy.
It ranges between 3 and 5 depending on the situation.
you go to 3 feet, it's single file walking then. You and I walk together and we're covering 5 feet, standing side by side.
And like I mentioned, the 5 feet is already in our municipal code. So technically speaking, we are supposed to be giving 5 feet already. And it's unfortunate that some people have trees where they want to put their cafes out in the sidewalk, or light posts or fire hydrants or what have you. It does limit things. But the sidewalk cafes are also is to extend their premises. They do not own the sidewalks. The city and the residents own the sidewalks.
I just think we have to watch out. It's a unique special feature that Ripon has where you can put your goods out or a table out or whatever. And I think we need to watch and allow people to, again, feet's too much. I really do. I think maybe if we compromise to 4, it would be better. The biggest complaint I get from people is the parklet, that they have to go around. If alcohol was allowed on the parklet, then it would be a straight shot in front of Knuth or pedestrians.
Which, in my opinion, the way I read the ordinance, it should be allowed. And
I do
it's a
too.
pet peeve of mine that the seating should be on that and the sidewalk should be
Yes.
clear, but that is not how it was approved originally, so.
I know. I wish we could go and revisit that. Maybe we can some other.
One more summer of it. One more summer of it.
I know, but maybe somebody else will come up with some,
Right.
maybe somebody else will want one, so.
The only problem with that was the fact is, and Chief, tell me if I'm wrong, is it wasn't considered having the alcohol out there. That's the reason we went the way we did.
But I believe our new ordinance passed last year would offset that.
Right. But I'm just saying, at the time, that's
Correct.
what we did.
State law.
And I think Lud
It's
addressed
state
that
law.
once too.
So this item is on the agenda as a discussion item. We don't need to act on it this evening. If we want to leave it for thought and bring it back, or we could act on it this evening as well.
Can you read again? Because I don't think we have the exact language here, right? So you're
Okay.
proposing,
My proposal
Yeah.
is sidewalk cafes shall not be placed within 5 feet of a curb and shall allow for a minimum of 5 feet of open and unobstructed sidewalk. And the second half of that sentence is taken directly or paraphrased from the ordinance that we already have in place of 15.20.
So we're really not changing anything.
The way I see it.
It's giving some definition to the people that apply for the permits. Right now, there really isn't anything. I mean, the way it is right now, to a point.
No, we need 3 feet.
The current ordinance talks about goods, wares, and merchandise. So it's not apples and apples. It clearly is those that are placing things out for sale. So clearly, if you want to enforce the ordinance, you need to address it because we know there are situations that it is being, the spirit, again, that's up to the common council, whether you want to detail. I understand the mayor's thinking, but this ordinance isn't directly related to sidewalk cafe.
Distance from curb and a clear unobstructed distances, so we could put 2 separate numbers in there if we wanted to, very easily. So we could say 5 feet from the curb and 4 feet clear.
I mean, 3 feet where it's obstructed, which would be a tree, a light post.
Fire hydrant.
Fire hydrant or whatever. That would be the exception to the 5-foot rule.
And
So that you could still get a wheelchair through single file best brand.
just playing devil's advocate for the city attorney here,
Well, you'd be selling it. I don't think they want to sell them.
Right.
They want people to sit in. But yeah, I understand your thinking.
Jolene.
In principle, I'm very happy we're having this conversation, and more than one person in a wheelchair or motorized sort of, mobility, have some concerns sometimes about being downtown, as well as someone with a larger stroller. I think sometimes it comes to maybe people that set out chairs or things that individuals move it, that maybe it's beyond out. I guess my point is I am inclined, I really like the idea of this, of the 5 feet. And yet I think I'm also inclined to allow local business owners to provide some feedback to make sure, if it needs to be 4.5 or something based on their situation. I don't know, I'm inclined, I almost want to make a motion to pass this, but yet I'm also inclined to maybe wait and bring it back next time and allow some feedback from local business owners, but hopefully the public and business owners pay attention.
And just to follow up on the customers moving the chairs, I'm almost certain that as they creep closer to the curb, it's almost always the customers that are doing it. I doubt the business owners are placing them further and further out.
Yeah.
But it is incumbent upon them to regulate what their customers are doing. Howard.
You're talking about other businesses and that. I've had several of them come into my business to discuss this, and they understand where we're coming from. They know that some are pushing them out farther than others in that, and reasoning for doing it is to keep it uniform, and they've had no problem with that. So that was one of the reasons I brought it up at the last meeting to be brought back for tonight.
A good point. I suppose we did have that amount of time to get feedback, didn't we?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve a change to the ordinance, or to amend the ordinance for a 5, except where there is an obstruction, to go to 3 feet.
It's not an action item.
Said we can vote on it tonight.
On here.
Is it an agenda?
Discussion.
You certainly could.
Put it on.
Put it on the way that Howie has moved it for consideration with the public and the business owners, kind of like where you're going. And I think the chief spoke to this the last time this came up, and he was pretty straightforward to say, let me deal with the property owner. Bill, if you have any comment?
Yeah, I think when we talked about this last time, I had discussions afterwards with Ripon Main Street, the sidewalk cafes. What I'm seeing more of are things like, and maybe this will be addressed with the, just for my clarification, the unobstructed. So I'm seeing more of like the signage, so like feet unobstructed. Are you saying that those are not going to be allowed within that 5 feet as well?
Also.
But the caveat is for display purposes only. A sign saying, come in here might be
Display.
close enough. Display.
I would consider that display, which
Displaying something.
at the edge of the sidewalk.
Okay. So yeah,
You and I can talk about that.
yeah.
But in
I
terms
just-
of-
That was my question when I'm hearing this discussion, because I'm seeing more of that than I ever
the
have
sidewalk
before.
cafe.
Yes, than the issues with the sidewalk cafes, but you're hearing that from your constituents. Yep, with the Main Street manager,
Thank you.
he had reached out, as far as I know, to the businesses to kind of give them a heads up and try to control that a little bit, so that's all I can speak on that.
Yeah, and I think the same follow-up, if we ordinance amendment, we bring it back at the next meeting. Make everybody aware that that's what the council is considering.
Yeah,
That might be.
yeah, my suggestion would be if you're going to wait till the next meeting, that you reach out to him as well, for him to
let
put
him-
out
let
on
him
his
come forward.
contacts downtown as well as the chamber and say,
sense.
this is the discussion. If you have concerns, you need to reach out to your older people to discuss that.
So the motion would be to put on the floor for action an amendment to the ordinance.
Would you want to use my wording, changing the,
I will second that.
All right, thank you.
Right. I just wondered. So just so I did make sure I just heard that.
Except for where there is an obstruction, which would be like a tree, a light post, a
From my
fire hydrant.
perspective, I think that makes enforcement difficult.
Okay.
If you're going to make a distance, that from an enforcement standpoint, I could see some difficulty with that. So if you want to go 3 feet all the way, that's fine. 5 feet all the way, you guys do what you want, we'll enforce what you do, but
We're gonna make your job easier.
Hopeful that you'd be able to say to them, I think is important, and encouraging 5 feet whenever we can get it is part of his motion. That's the way I would look at it, Chief.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, how many, like a tree or whatever, post?
because there is about a 4-foot cut for each tree, so we lose 4 feet of sidewalk.
Yeah, so the tree's pretty big, isn't it?
Some of them are pushing 4.
My way to put the new one in is 3 foot.
Yeah.
3 foot.
So when they can give 5 feet, give 5 feet. When they can't, give 3 is what I think the ordinance.
3 is absolute minimum.
Or absolute minimum. And for enforcement purposes, I think the city attorneys.
Amend ordinance 6.3, to bring back for a vote at the next meeting. To amending ordinance 6.34, sidewalk cafes shall not be placed within 5 feet of a curb of open and unobstructed sidewalk. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I would like city staff or somebody to directly talk to each individual store.
As a cafe?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because there's no sense in coming and talking to me, because I'm not.
Excuse me.
putting a
Not
cafe-
necessarily even just a cafe. There's people that just have a store. Sidewalk needs to be clear.
Yeah, they should be aware of the
And
chapter
Hart
15.
Mercantile, Sol Patina, Farrell's Fine Furnishings, and the Salvage Company, too, that's associated with Backbone. What's going on the 300 block, because I don't
Get down there.
get down there.
Probably Jay's store, they have a sign out sometimes when they're open. Probably should talk to them too.
So what you're saying is you want someone employed by the city to speak with pretty much all downtown business owners?
You don't have to speak to me.
Yeah.
Take me off this.
All right.
Yes, please.
I'm gonna have to say we will do what we can and we'll send a letter. We are not in the business of going door to door and telling every single business owner what's happening here. We have communicated with Main Street. They are the downtown's spokesperson for a lot of issues. They're aware of this, but we will do our best to get a letter out to every business owner, reminding them of the current when it's proposed and ready. We will do that. That's when I can commit to this council.
In writing is very good.
Any further discussion? We're bringing this back to the next meeting as an action item. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That is approved.
Only update I have is hopefully by the end of this week, the decorative signposts downtown will be done. Are the ones that we would be pouring, barring rain, pouring sidewalk around all of the foundation bases tomorrow. And then once the concrete's got a couple days, we'll put the rest of the posts. You'll also see some of the older posts being removed because we tried to consolidate as best we could.
My only comment there is some of the old signs look tattered on the nice shiny poles.
I'll see if we have more in stock, otherwise we'll be ordering more, but we purposely are not putting the street name signs up because we are working with Craig to identify perhaps a different style of street name signs.
Would those likely
be street name signs? And so the lower street name sign will go with that bracket, and then there's another bracket that goes on the street name sign for the cross one.
All right. Thank you.
Update on all the programming. Just 2 weeks ago, I put out a program for daddy-daughter tea parties. So that will happen in July. Tennis and basketball that will be happening in July. I've been working with the police department on the Plush Patrol program. I don't know if you guys have seen it on Facebook, but the kids love it. It's essentially a family does every Wednesday. The stuffed animal gets to hang out with the police department. They try to go to different departments in the city. I think last week they went to the fire department, Spidey Man, firefighters in one of the pictures. So they do little fun things like that the kids love. The parents are loving it too when I send the photos to them. I'm working on a Mommy Me yoga class I have a plein air event. It is an art event that will be happening at Ripon Fest. I talked with Ripon Fest and they allowed me to have it there. Local community member in Ripon. So this event specifically is a 1 to 2 day event. So the first challenge is what we're calling it, is you have a little over 5-mile radius from downtown Ripon, and once it starts, they're able to paint what they see as the little things in Ripon. They paint their whatever, any medium, 2-hour painting, any medium challenge. So it's just something fun. It's not overly complicated, but just something to add art into the city, I guess. And then working with her as well as potentially adding some intergenerational art programming that we could do at the Senior Activity Center with the seniors and youth, a wide, broad range of generations there. And all of this stuff you can sign up online through the new website too. So all of this requires registration. And then also just for projects, the disc golf course, you may have seen that too. DPW has been awesome to work with. They put in 2 of the baskets that got taken out during construction. So those are back in. Howard went out and he spray painted the 4x10
tee boxes.
DPW went out and they dug those out. So I don't know exact date concrete will be done sometime, but they're dug and they're ready for concrete. And then also I'm working to get the Parks and Rec Department, Howard, and the Kiwanis Group. They're a big part of it. They were able to get a grant through, I think it was the Webster Foundation, a $3,000 grant that will go towards the project. So there's that. And then also, to answer one of your questions prior for field maintenance, while emailing the group that had the tournament this past weekend, just asking how things went. A meeting in July about field maintenance, so we are meeting to discuss that. I know, I forgot to say that when you brought it up, so just so you know. But other than that, that's pretty much it for projects and activities. Any products ready?
Should we mention the repair station?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I want to give thanks to Ashton for working with, I was a part of this last year, Leadership Fond du Lac, a program through Envision Greater. What we did is we raised money to put in bike repair stations throughout the county. One of them we wanted specifically stationed here in Ripon, and so working with Adam as well as Ashton, there is a new bike repair over out by the trailhead and the community senior center out by that area. And so I don't know if it's been used, but
yeah,
again, thank you for working with permanently installed. And I should give a thank you to Moby Evo as well as Cliffs, who both sponsored that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Looks awesome.
Not much, just I sent out correspondence regarding shared revenue. So about a week ago, that was signed. A giant step in the city of Ripon in the supplemental aid. Supplemental shared revenue will receive approximately $361,000, and then there's correspondence and some information. But a lot of information regarding that bill. But a huge shout out to the state legislature and the governor for coming to a deal and getting something done.
All right, thank you. I have really no comments or appointments tonight. Any agenda items for future council meetings or comments from council? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn.
Got a motion by